Hi, my name is Robin Smith, and I am the Communications Director for the Oregon Cattlemen's Association. Today on Cattlemen Talk, we're going to be speaking with Ian McGregor. Ian is an assistant professor. He focuses on livestock and irrigation and works for Oregon State University at the Klamath Basin Research and Extension Center. Today, we're going to be talking about drought. Here we go. All right. Hi, Ian. Could you tell me about yourself and your knowledge of drought and livestock?
Yeah, so my name's Ian McGregor. I've been living here in Klamath County for about the past 4 years. Before I came to Klamath County, I got my bachelor's in animal science from North Carolina State University. Worked on a plethora of different farms and ranches across the country, moved to South Texas for a while. And then I got my master's in ruminant nutrition at Montana State University. And then after that, I landed here in Klamath County. And as far as drought, it's nothing new. It's a natural occurrence that happens every so often. I believe there's some record of drought in the Klamath Basin from the early 90s, and then we have other occurrences of drought that we can go back to the Dust Bowl in the early 1900s. And so in drought situations, forage quality actually increases, but we're actually worried about, we need the tons of forage to be able to raise happy and healthy animals. And that's the real issue. Forage and water, have a pretty good linear relationship up into a point of diminishing returns. And, that's something we can talk about all day. But with the drought situation, we have a lot less forage to feed our cattle. A lot of extremely productive areas have basically been rendered into parking lots.
For people who are not involved in agriculture, how would you explain a drought year and what that means for farmers or ranchers?
In my time, getting my college education and everything, spent a lot of time in these city metro areas like Bozeman and Raleigh. And of course, got to, make friendships with folks who are not involved in agriculture. And I think the biggest misconception that really gets to me from folks not connected with agriculture is that there's an impression that people in agriculture are just making a bunch of money. Like there's just all this money to be had in agriculture. And that's just simply not true. In a drought year, the amount of green grass that you see out in the field is a reflection of, the situation for those landowners and land managers. And I think a lot of folks, when this happens, they're really waiting around, crossing their fingers for somebody to help them, some type of government assistance, and we never really know what that's going to be. It's not just farmers and ranchers here in Klamath County. The mechanics and all the small business owners are very privy and worried about the water situation themselves. I heard a saying, I think it was documented by my colleague Willie Riggs, that the ag industry here is around a $200 million industry, and every dollar that's produced in ag is spent in our local community twice. Also, every job in ag represents a handful of jobs in town. And so, when producers are trying to figure out how to, make ends meet during these bad years, it's not as easy as going out and getting a job. Because first of all, our producers live in rural areas, an hour drive from town. And also, given the effect on our small business owners with the water situation, the jobs might be hard to come by as well. So it's the whole drought thing. It's a desperate situation for our local producers, and producing food and fiber is the foundation of our society. And we hope to not see any kind of shortages or anything, and keep on being able to produce food and fiber. But the outlook, with these consecutive drought years, doesn't always look so great.
And last year was a pretty tough drought year. What was something that within your work you worked on as far as aiding cattle or producers, maybe in the Klamath area?
Yeah, so my position, basically the way I explain it to folks is half of it is doing replicated scientific research, or in other words, discovering new knowledge and trying out different ideas. And then the other half of that is extending that new research-based knowledge and extending that to the people who can actually use it. The mantras, the sayings that I've been kind of thinking about as I go about doing my job and trying to come up with ideas. One of them is being able to survive the bad years and tee off on the good years. And also, a lot of what I do is just helping producers find the optimal way to deal with the cards that they have been dealt. One thing I'm very excited about, a lot of people who might be watching this might have known the late Steve Orloff, who was a very, very smart individual. And at one point it struck me, I figured instead of reinventing the wheel, I thought I might see where Steve left off and kind of go from there. And so one thing that we've been seeing, or that I've been seeing in the literature, is that there's this theory with cool season forages that in the heat of the summer, cool season forages really want to go dormant. They want to go to sleep. And when they're able to go to sleep, whether if it's during the heat of the summer or right before, winter dormancy, is that when they're able to do this, they're able to hold on to some of their energy reserves. And so, on the other side of the coin, we could be taking a very small amount of water, very less than ideal, and spread it out very thin throughout the entire growing season. But when we do that, while these cool season forages want to go dormant and go to sleep, we're barely keeping them awake and making them use some of those energy stores. And so the idea is that with some of these cool season forages, we can really, dump all the water that we have onto that first cutting and then shut off the irrigation and let things go dormant so that forages can hold on to that energy and come back like gangbusters in the spring, which would be the essence of surviving the bad years and being able to tee off on the good years. And we found that, this whole theory does hold true with different forage species, some more than others. Orchard grass is not a very resilient species to this, but smooth brome we've actually found is very stable, no matter what you do with the irrigation, whether if you full season irrigation, cut it off in the middle of the season or cut it off after the first cutting. We've seen smooth brome grass yields to be very stable, and as well as stand survivability has been very stable with these different irrigation strategies. And also we tall fescue, summer active and summer dormant varieties have been tested, and we have some cool side-by-side pictures during drought situations where you can see that the tall fescue summer dormant variety actually is able to remain more stable and resilient through these different irrigation shutoffs and things of that nature. And so we're looking at how do you take your limited amount of water and how you distribute that throughout the year. What's the smartest thing to do considering plant physiology and things of that nature, as well as the forage species themselves. And I'm also doing some work kind of based on the idea that annual forages like barley, wheat, triticale, rye, the root systems on these annual forages dig much deeper into the soil profile than perennial cool season forages. And so there's been some success in other areas where folks have interseeded with the no-till drill annual forages into existing perennial pasture and have been able to yield capture more of the water in the soil profile and yield more forage that way. And so we're looking at, quantifying that, looking at how different, the forage yield between different species, and of course the residual effect as a result of competition for resources, that residual effect on the existing perennial pasture the next year, and the differences between species. So those are some of the projects we have, that float to the top. We're also, grasshoppers have been a prevalent issue. We kind of refer to them as a drought related forage pest. And they come out and they'll make a parking lot out of, whatever forage you have left. And so this year, another dry year, we're assuming we might have a grasshopper issue this year. Grasshopper, development is driven by thermal accumulation, which can be calculated and tracked by calculating growing degree days. And so you want to practice some kind of suppression method, before that fourth instar, I believe. And so grasshoppers start hatching at around 150 growing degree days. You basically have this, 4-week window where you need to really do some kind of suppression method. And once they become adults and grow wings, these suppression methods are rather ineffective. And so we're helping producers, get ahead of it, tracking growing degree days, before we even see the grasshoppers come out, so we can get all of our ducks in a row to be able to, practice some kind of suppression method at, within that actual effective window. And so, those are some of the projects that kind of float to the top.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear about the proactive research you're doing. And then I'm glad you brought up the grasshoppers too, because that was definitely an issue for many last year. Kind of along those lines about what producers and ranchers can expect in this upcoming year, do you have any pointers for how they can start preparing either their own herd, their operation, or maybe pasture management, as you were speaking about? If you could expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah. So, that's kind of the $1 million question, right? There are a couple of answers that I can provide for that. We've done the OSU has generated quite a bit of data on looking at annual forages, like I mentioned, the wheat, the triticale, the rye, that sort of thing, which are traditionally around here grown dry land in a lot of cases without irrigation. They're very, very water efficient. A lot of these rye varieties can be germinated just from moisture in the air. And so the one thing I'd recommend, if it were me and I had a drought-stricken pasture of orchard grass that I wasn't think was going to produce very much, I would think about going in and with a no-till drill, something of that nature, and putting in some of these annual forages before, pretty soon here, because if you did it now here in the next week or so, these forages or the seeds will be able to use this residual soil moisture to be able to germinate and get going. And that could get you some early season forage. Another thing that I like to talk about is setting yourself up to be flexible in your stocking rates. And so, of course, cows are kind of a long-term investment, not super flexible in being able to, buy and sell your cows, especially if you're trying to maintain some kind of genetics on your ranch. However, there is some data, I believe, from 2010 that demonstrated that having a herd that is around 50 to 70% brood cows and the remainder being stockers that can easily be bought and sold. And with this scenario, with this publication I'm referring to, actually increased the net ranch return by 66%. And so not only, increased return, but having that flexibility in being able to buy and sell your stockers gives you that flexibility to remain resilient in these drought situations where you're having to adjust the number of cattle you have to the amount of forage that you have in the field. And so yeah, those would be a couple of my recommendations for this year.
That's great. Thank you. What are some tools or support that OSU extension agencies can offer the agricultural community at this time?
Yeah, so the greatest thing about OSU, I think, is we're constantly discovering new knowledge. I believe to grow agricultural commodities, you have to be progressive and kind of change with our changing environment. And so we always have ongoing research testing out these different ideas to help people adjust to the new environment that we're seeing. And so I think that's something that's been underutilized. I think we could really benefit from feedback from agricultural producers to make sure our research is in line with the actual reality and context of local production. But yeah, I recommend folks to pick up the phone, get on your computer, email, phone call, get in touch with your local extension folks, and see what kind of information they have to offer. We have access to all of these scientific journals, and so we can, you have a question for us, we can look into the scientific literature and give you an answer that is backed by replicated scientific literature. So my position, I'm a servant to the public. I believe our salary comes from tax dollars, so don't feel afraid to get in contact with me. We're here to talk on the phone, go out on the ranch and meet with you, that sort of thing. Also, one other thing I find underutilized is our local partners, conservation organizations, NRCS and SWCD have a lot of really great opportunities to help people out during these drought situations. It's pretty incredible what some of these organizations can offer, as well as look into being active in your local associations, the Oregon Cattlemen's Association, your county association. Another association that I believe is very underutilized, that where there'd be great opportunity, is the Oregon Hay and Forage Association. Good things happen when people get together and start thinking about stuff and coming up with solutions. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to be had with getting involved with these local associations for these various commodity groups. So I think that's about it.
All right, Ian. Well, thank you so much again. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this important issue. And we can hope for a calm year ahead.